Hello, hello. I'm Kendra Perry and welcome to my weekly Facebook live show. Today we're going to be talking about a topic that I love talking about and I haven't really talked too much about it on these Facebook lives before. So we're going to be talking about iodine deficiency, and how this is the leading cause of a lot of hypothyroid, fibrocystic breast disease, and especially symptoms like extreme fatigue. And one of the things I'm the most passionate about is giving women more energy. And I guess fixing iodine deficiency can be a really, really big part of this. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. But before we get started, I just want to let you know about a contest that I have going on, or I guess not a contest, but I'm going to be drawing a prize to win a free hair mineral analysis test plus consult with me. So one of the biggest things I've noticed lately is that, I think the biggest downfall with functional medicine and testing is the fact that it's really expensive and it's not extremely available to a lot of people out there. So, working on with me one-on-one is going to cost you a couple $1,000s because, the cost of testing is really high. And then the cost of doing one-on-one sessions with me is really high as well because I'm really, really booked up. And I don't have a lot of time. I can't be everywhere at the same time. So these cost a fair bit of money as well. And a lot of the people I talk with, there are so many women out there who need functional lab testing, who need this kind of work, who need to uncover what the root cause of their issues actually are, but they can't afford it because it's just not available to that demographic who doesn't make as much money or doesn't have as much money to spare. So I've been thinking a lot about how I can make this more affordable and more available to people who don't quite have the money to do the one-on work with me. So I've been brainstorming a group program that basically would allow women to still access the functional lab testing and the support, but it wouldn't include the one-on-one support from me. So that would actually cut the cost basically in half, which is pretty awesome. So basically, this is kind of what I've been thinking, is that there would be a Facebook group. I would do weekly coaching calls. And when people did the testing, they would get the protocol in a document, so completely laid out so they knew exactly what to do, but they wouldn't have the one-on-one consult with me, and that would make it significantly cheaper. But then they would be able to access support from me through a Facebook group and also from the group coaching calls where they could basically ask me anything. And then I also would have a members area where I'd have tons of resources on understanding your test results, giving you more information, and then that would make it much more affordable. So I'm just interested in if this is something that people would be interested in, if they think that this is something that would, make this type of testing and work more accessible to them. So if basically all you need to do is fill out my 2-minute survey. It's literally like 5 or 6 questions. It really shouldn't take you more than a few minutes to fill out. The link is just above this video to that survey. And if you fill out the survey and you put your email address at the end, then I'm going to enter you to win one of these hair mineral analysis plus 60-minute consults, which is valued at like $500. So it's a pretty good value. Chelsea says absolutely, so I know she's into it. But I just really want your feedback, because if I'm going to create this, I want to know that it's something you're going to be interested in, because I really do want to make this more available to people, because I think so many women need this. So all you need to do is fill out the survey. You're going to be entered to win. I'm probably going to draw the prize winner on Friday. So if you watch this video before Friday, make sure to do that. I would love your feedback. I've been reading all the comments I've been getting, and it's been super helpful. So that's how you can win that. So that's the housekeeping. And so now I want to get into iodine and why it's so important. So I think typically when we think of iodine, we are thinking of, that kind of medical solution, something we'd use to disinfect things, right? But iodine is actually this incredibly important mineral, and it's very underutilized, and it's a very common deficiency. It's definitely one of the most common deficiencies I see. So iodine is important because there are receptors for iodine in pretty much every single cell in the entire body. And your thyroid hormone, so your T4 and your T3 thyroid hormone, are actually made from iodine. Okay, so if you're iodine deficient, you're going to have issues with your thyroid. Thanks, Jennifer. Thanks so much for filling that out. I appreciate that. Everyone else, fill out the survey. Win a free hair mineral analysis. You'll be entered to win. I want your feedback. I'm really excited to create this if this is something you guys are interested in. Okay. So back to iodine. Try not to get distracted with the comments. But I just love responding to all of you. I love that you guys are with me and hanging out and you're interacting with me. It's super fun. Okay, so iodine. Okay, so yeah, if you have iodine deficiency, you're going to have a really hard time making thyroid hormone, and you may on blood tests see low T4 and low T3, and maybe your TSH is normal, but T4 and T3 are low because you don't have the iodine to make that. Another thing with iodine that's really interesting is it's a very powerful detoxifier. So if you don't have good levels of iodine, you may have issues with detoxification. It also seems that iodine deficiency tends to cause like the proliferation of cells, so like tumor growth. So women who have iodine deficiency tend to have fibroids, they tend to have cysts, they tend to have fibrocystic breast disease. They may even have thyroid tumors or thyroid nodules that they feel swell around their neck. So that is incredibly common with iodine deficiency. So anytime I know a woman has a thyroid, if she has Hashimoto's, if she has hypothyroid, hyperthyroid, or Graves' disease, or her thyroid markers are suboptimal, I can almost guarantee that there is going to be an iodine deficiency present. If they have fibrocystic breast disease, if there's estrogen issues, typically there's going to be an iodine deficiency. So you might be wondering, well, how do we get iodine deficient? Well, one of the main ways we get iodine deficient is that we're not getting a lot of it in our diet unless you're eating a ton of fish. And these days, fish is not the safest meat to be eating because of contamination in the ocean. But if you're not eating a lot of marine phytoplankton, kelp, seaweed, that sort of thing, a lot of us don't get a lot of iodine in the diet. And what's really friggin' interesting is that the recommended daily intake for iodine in North America is 150 micrograms. But people actually need a lot more of that, like maybe even 100 times as much, in order for the body to actually function and for you to produce proper thyroid hormone. So I know in Asia, typically the average daily dose of iodine is 12.5 milligrams. And the recommended intake, like I just said, is 150 micrograms. So that is a big difference. So we're talking about almost 100 times. And typically when I get women on an iodine protocol, I'm starting them on 12.5 milligrams. Okay. So that is significantly more than 150 micrograms. So, the biggest thing is that we're not getting a lot in our diet, especially if we don't live near the sea. We're not eating a lot of seaweed, that sort of thing. We may not be getting a lot of iodine. Also, iodine tends to be very deficient in soils. The other way that people get iodine deficient is due to the halides. So halides are a type of chemical. They include chlorine, chloramine, fluoride, and bromine, okay? And these are really prevalent in our environment. So if you have ever drank tap water for any significant amount of time in your life, raise your hand. Just, give me a wave or a yes in the comments box, because my guess is that you have consumed tap water at some point in your life. I drank well water most of my life. And then when I was moved to the city, I think I spent probably about 10 years drinking tap water. If you're drinking city or municipal water, there is chlorine in it, there is chlorine in it, a chloramine in it, and there is likely fluoride in it as well, depending on where you live. So you are getting exposed, and what these halides do is they compete on the receptors with iodine. So they will actually bind to the iodine receptor, push the iodine off of the receptor, so that even if you are consuming a lot of iodine, because you're trying to sort of like up your amounts, it is not actually getting to the receptor. It's literally bouncing off of the receptor, and you're not getting saturated with iodine, okay? So this is a big deal. And so this is one of the biggest downfalls for testing for iodine deficiency, because you can do a urine collection. It's called a challenge test, where basically you consume a whole bunch of iodine and then you measure excretion of iodine in the urine. And what you want to see is a very high excretion, because if your body needs iodine, it's going to take it up. And if you have a high excretion, what that would tell you is that you actually have enough iodine on the receptor, so your body is excreting it because you don't need it. But this is a big issue if there are halides on those receptors, because literally these different, the iodine is going to bounce off the receptor. It's not going to actually bind to the receptor because it's being blocked by halides. So that could lead you to see a high excretion of iodine in the urine and maybe make you think that, oh, I'm good. I must be saturated with iodine because it's getting excreted. So that's the reason why I don't tend to run this test, because it can be skewed like that. And how I actually determine iodine deficiency is with a hair mineral analysis test. It doesn't test for iodine, but I can look at other minerals and have a pretty good idea if there's iodine deficiency. So low potassium, low lithium, and high calcium, coupled with thyroid issues or a high thyroid ratio, tells me that someone is iodine deficient, and I'm going to put them on an iodine protocol. And the iodine protocol is super cool. I'm going to tell you a little bit about it, but this is not leeway to go out and do the iodine protocol. I would not do this without a practitioner who is iodine literate, and I would not do this without hair mineral analysis testing, because it can literally make you feel worse, or you could totally fuck up your thyroid. So it needs to be done properly. There's a certain sequence, but there are some things I'm going to give you that you can start doing right now that are going to help with this. So with the iodine protocol, if you're going to do iodine, it needs to be Lugol's. Lugol's iodine 5% is the best. And this is a combination of potassium iodide and just iodine. So it's iodide and potassium iodine. And basically you want both of these because your thyroid needs both. And you want the Lugol's. This is the one I've read the most about. This is the one I trust. And you would always start with a really low dose, like maybe just one drop, which would be about 7, or no, what would that be? It would be 6.25 milligrams. So a really low dose. But I always want to know where your minerals are at, because whether you're a fast or slow metabolic type, it could really wire you up and make you feel worse. But you would never ever take iodine on its own, ever, because if you do that and you don't have the proper cofactors, this could actually lead to iodine getting into the wrong place. And there are some case studies of people taking iodine on its own and actually messing up their thyroid. So it is not something you want to do on its own. You want to take the cofactors. The cofactors are magnesium, selenium, vitamin B2, vitamin B3, the non-flush version of niacin, and did I say selenium, or vitamin C. And those are basically the cofactors that help get the iodine to where it belongs. So if you're going to go out and do an iodine protocol on your own without a practitioner, I don't recommend it, but you would never do iodine on its own. You would always do it with the cofactors. And it can actually take a really, really long time to reach full saturation of iodine in your system. It can take 6 months to a year if you are severely iodine deficient. But, you know, if we're taking iodine, we really want to make sure that the iodine actually gets to the receptor, right? Because if we have halides bound to those receptors, then that iodine is not actually going to get on the receptor. So we need to do some flushing, some clearing on the of the halides, and that is the salt loading protocol. So you guys have heard me recommend drinking half your body weight in ounces of fresh spring water or filtered water, and adding in that 1/4 teaspoon of sea salt. So that is really important. And typically 2 weeks before I even give someone iodine, I will have them do a salt loading protocol. So I'll have them add a 1/2 teaspoon of sea salt, unrefined sea salt or Himalayan pink salt, into a 1/2 cup of water, chug it down, tastes like shit, tastes super salty, super gross, but then you chase it with a full cup of water, and then you repeat that every 30, 40 minutes, about 3 or 4 times. It's going to make you pee a lot. That's normal. That's actually how the halides leave the body. But the sodium chloride in the sea salt actually will help flush some of those halides off of the receptor. And so you'd always want to do this every day for 2 weeks leading up to taking iodine, and then continue on with maybe once a week ongoing. This is actually a really great thing. Salt loading is a fantastic thing to do if you suffer from a lot of fatigue or brain fog, because those halide chemicals, they're in everything. They're not only in tap water, they're in mattresses, couches, cars. That's where bromine, unorganic or not organic strawberries are fertilized with bromine. Bromine is in bread. These things are really prevalent in our environment. So even if you haven't been drinking tap water, the chances that they're in your body are very high, and they can cause a lot of brain fog and a lot of fatigue. So if I wake up some days and I'm like kind of brain foggy, kind of walking around in a tunnel, don't feel great, I will do that salt loading protocol, and I will actually feel significantly better. It will clear my brain. So this is actually a really great thing to do. So I don't recommend doing an iodine protocol without a hair mineral analysis or without working with a practitioner who's iodine literate, but I do recommend the salt loading protocol. It's really, really fantastic. So that's basically the iodine protocol. I highly recommend it. Something to keep in mind. So in order for iodine to get into the transporter system, your body uses thyroid stimulating hormone. And so when you're on the iodine protocol, it's actually totally common to see elevated levels of TSH or thyroid stimulating hormone, because that's the correct response. That means that the body is, putting the iodine where it belongs. But it can be a little bit alarming. If your doctor sees elevated TSH, they're going to tell you that you're hypothyroid and that you need thyroid meds. But if you're on an iodine protocol, that's actually 100% normal. So that's the iodine protocol. It's actually one of the coolest protocols that I do with clients. I see significant results from it. It has been life-changing for me. Honestly, it has cleared my fatigue. It has helped me lose weight. It has been so helpful. I love it. And so if you're interested in knowing whether an iodine protocol would be appropriate for you, definitely reach out to me about minerals. We can run this test and get some information as to whether you would tolerate this type of protocol and what would be the type of iodine protocol that you would do best on. So you can always send a message to my page. And I mentioned this at the beginning, but I'm going to mention it again. If you want to win a free hair mineral analysis plus a consult for me valued at about $500, you just need to fill out my 2-minute survey, because I'm considering creating a group program that doesn't include the one-on-one support. It would include group coaching calls and a membership area that would explain everything to you and give you all the resources you needed. But it would literally cut the cost of testing in half. Because functional medicine is amazing. Everyone needs it, but it is so friggin' expensive. It costs a lot of money. My clients are paying me almost $2,000 at a minimum, and I want to make it more affordable. I want to make it more accessible to women who don't have that amount of money to burn because they need it. So I'm considering creating this to make it cheaper. I want your feedback. I want to know if this is something you'd be interested in. I want to hear your thoughts on this, and literally the survey will take you 3 minutes. I'm going to draw the winner on Friday. So if you watch this before then, the link is just on top of this video. Fill out the survey, and I want to hear what you have to say. Okay, so that's everything for today's video. I hope that was helpful. The Q&A, the live Q&A is on Thursday at 4:45. Maybe a little bit later. Yeah, if you have questions, just comment on this video, send a message to my page, or just email support@kendraperry.net, and I will answer it on Thursday's Q&A. Okay, that's all for me. I hope that was helpful. Thanks everyone. Thanks everyone who was with me live, and thanks to all who watched the replay. Okay, bye everyone.